Hello and welcome to my new podcast, The Pirate King Radio. This is your host, Left Jab. I wanted to make a podcast that is One Piece related, but then also was reminiscent of the old days where it used to be a radio show and kind of like a talk show, radio show hybrid. But talking about something that I love, which is One Piece. We will be talking about One Piece news, the old chapter, the new chapter. We'll talk about theories, and we'll do tier lists and all this fun stuff in one show. We'll just pack it all in. This week is not going to be super long since it's my first one, and I'm just trying to feel around and see what I can do with it and, try different sounds and noises and all these different graphics and all that stuff. I'm going to try to do my best and figure all that out. So it won't be a super long podcast today, and it's going to be free-flowing, so there's no script. I'm just going to be talking, and that is my goal, is to just get better at talking like this and talking about One Piece, and it's just something I love, so it should go pretty smoothly and easily. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is talking about One Piece news. That's where I am just going to go and look up different things regarding One Piece on Google, see what the top hits are. So the first hit that I see is that there is a smartwatch collection. It's on Essential Japan, and it looks like it features the 4 emperors. If you are interested in that, you can go out and maybe get a watch of one of the 4 emperors. I clicked on it right now, and it looks like, it's Buggy, Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shanks, which is really cool because Luffy, I think it's his Nika form, and it's going to be like a purple themed watch. Blackbeard is a black themed watch. Shanks is obviously red, and then Buggy is that light blue. Yeah, it's actually really nice and cool. I did not expect to find this. I did not expect to be talking about this right now, but it's actually a pretty sweet watch. And I'm actually glad that I found it. Let's see, and then there's 2 other pieces of news that pulled up that I want to talk about. One of them's kind of funny. I'm not going to talk long about it. But apparently Logan Paul, he is pivoting to One Piece manga cards. So that's what he's going to try to do to make money or whatever. He's going to buy rare One Piece cards and spend a lot of money. And I think the goal of that is to get that economy boosted and going. I don't know. But the last thing, that one's not great. But the last one I think is super cool because I actually saw a video on it this morning or last night. And it's about, they have a new One Piece interactive stunt show at Universal Studios in Hollywood for FanFest nights in 2026. I saw this, and it was actually so sick. The video I saw was Mihawk and Crocodile, people playing them and going on this boat where they do the little water shows and stuff. If you've ever been to Universal Studios, I think they still do Waterworld there, and that is awesome show. I love that show. But apparently they're doing One Piece shows there. But it's Buggy. It was a cross guild. It's Buggy, Crocodile, and Mihawk, and Buggy's talking, and Crocodile's mad at Buggy, obviously, and they're just riding around on this little boat. And it's actually pretty sweet. From what I saw, it's cool that they're all in their costumes and stuff, and Mihawk's costume is the one that's obviously in the new chapters where I think he has the gold sleeves and all that, and looks really cool. That is all the news I have for you. So I think we're gonna switch over. And we're going to get to the new chapter. Actually, we're going to do the old chapter first. I think I want to talk about the old chapter before we talk about the new chapter, just to see if there's any difference between the scans and the official and all that. So I'm going to do it's going to be different as the weeks go on, just because this is the first week. And I didn't do this chapter last week as the new chapter, but since it's the old one, I'll be talking about it briefly. But the first thing that happened in this chapter, one of the first things was Emu comes and tries to rescue Sommers, and he cuts off Gerd's fingers. He also cuts off, Hiruden tries to attack him. And he cuts off one of, I forget his name, but I should know this, but he cuts off one of the legs of the other giant. And then Zoro uses King of Hell Onigiri, which is a super strong attack. I would not say it's his strongest. Some people might. I think Ashura is probably his strongest, which is wild because, but he uses this, and it's probably like a top 3, top 5 attack of Zoro. And Imu simply just blocks it with his tail, which is kind of insane, and just sends Zoro flying when he uses the Black Flame Omen. And actually just going back to where Imu cuts off Gerd's fingers and, I know his name, but I can't find it anywhere. But the other guy's leg, it's in my head right now. I have it at the tip of my head. But anyways, I really hope that they don't make it a thing where he cuts off their appendages or whatever, and he's just destroying all these different people, cutting fingers, cutting limbs, cutting arms, cutting everything off. I just hope that Luffy doesn't come in and with his power is able to reverse all of what he just did, because he's like the opposite of Imu. I really hope that's not the case. It might be, because I kind of like the idea that Imu's going to do some crazy damage. And I get that Luffy coming in is kind of like, what needs to happen and be the opposite. And I get the whole dichotomy with them being opposites and all that stuff. I get it. And I get that Luffy is his, reversey. Like, he'll flip the boards back to his side. I get it. I get all that. But if he reverses the pain and all that he inflicts, like, I just think it'll break some tension. I don't know, that might be somewhere Oda might go with, but I just hope he doesn't. So past Zoro gets demolished in one hit. We actually don't know how he's doing because we never see him get up from this. Hopefully in a couple chapters we will. But yeah, it's crazy that we see Imu have this wild power with a small black flame called Omen. And it's super powerful. So, I mean, it's kind of cool seeing this. And if you didn't know, I'm on the train. A lot of you might be on different trains on Blackbeard or Imu. I'm on the train where Imu is going to somehow, I don't know if he's going to be defeated by Blackbeard or maybe he's defeated by someone else. Maybe Shanks shows up in Elbaf to help save, like, Elbaf and the Giants and Luffy and all them. Maybe not save them, but tag team with Luffy or something. Or at some point, Imu is just going to, take a beating and kind of be pretty broken or something. And I think Blackbeard will use that opportunity to swoop in, take his power. And that's the picture I think we see in the mural on the tree when Frankie's looking at it. I think on the left-hand side, the big giant hulking figure, and you kind of see where, like, they have, like, I think it's like 3 things scraggling from his face and stuff. And it kind of looks like Blackbeard, just like the teeth, I think, right there, and then the little scraggly things hanging from his chin. It kind of makes me think it's Blackbeard, and he's like a giant. He's like bigger in that picture. He's bigger than like Loki, and Loki is an ancient giant. So I think the only way he can do that is if he takes Emu's powers and somehow, I don't know. So I think that's going to happen. I also have another crazy theory. I'll just go with it right now. I have another crazy theory that potentially, I don't know if Rox is like still alive living in Blackbeard or what the situation is between Blackbeard and Rox, like how they're communicating or how Blackbeard knows how to do these things that his father clearly maybe has been setting out for him or something, or maybe someone from his clan. I don't know. But if Rox is still like existing within Blackbeard or something like that, I think it could be possible that he could still be like maybe turned evil because of Imu. Because, I mean, we saw him in the past at God Valley, and he was, I mean, or even before God Valley, but that whole flashback, he was kind of a good guy. Like, you kind of rooted for him. I ended up loving him. Like, honestly, it's a huge debate between him and Roger. Who do you like better? And, I mean, he was one of the best characters I think Oda has written. Rox was awesome, and he's kind of a good guy. You kind of want to root for him. It's like I don't know, like maybe a kid situation where he's kind of a bad guy a little bit, but then, I mean, he's not Luffy, who's a goody-goody, you know. But I don't know. I think there's a potential if Rox is still alive, like his brain or mind could be corrupted and like kind of evil and like prodding Blackbeard to do these evil things. I don't know. That's just a little theory. I mean, it has no basis. It's just something that I thought could happen. But back to that chapter, the last chapter, chapter 1180. We also see Sanji try to attack Imu, and that does not go well. He gets blocked, and then Imu counters and does another Omen explosion at Sanji, and he's taken out for the count just like Zoro. And then, obviously, we have Loki confronting Imu, which is awesome. He's telling him that he's the murderer of his father, who was the former king of Elbath, and I think actually at some point in the chapter, Imu, I'm not looking at the chapter, I'm looking at some bullet points, but I think at one point, like, Imu's talking about who the king is, but it kind of ends on a cliffhanger where Loki and Imu are both face-to-face, about to fight. But so I have a theory about being the king and stuff and why Imu is asking people that. We'll get into it in the next chapter because it opens up with that. So that's chapter 1180. It wasn't anything too crazy, like with the changes or anything between the scans and the official. But yeah, so moving on to 1181. I just read it. Awesome chapter. I loved it. But basically it starts with Harold telling Loki that he needs to take the throne and that he's been a horrible king. And I think I'm just going to cut in right there and do my theory. I was going to wait till after the new chapter, after we talk about it. But it's something I've been thinking about the last week before even these spoilers came out. And obviously before the chapter came out. But I was thinking, why is Imu so set on finding who the king is of Elbath? And I think that he needs someone to be the king in order to maybe control the land or the people or something like that. But I think also there's a point in the story where they talk about the king of Elbath and an ancient giant, the king who is an ancient giant or something like that, where they can control the other ancient giants or something. And I think that's Loki's whole goal, is getting the person who claims the throne of Elbath, being an ancient giant, and then being able to control not only the people of Elbath, but then ancient giants as well. And it might be those shipbuilders that they have in Punk Hazard that are frozen. It might be them that he can control, or I think there's some situation where Imu has to have someone declare their king, which has been set up for a while now, when Harold said, you need to be the king, which is kind of funny because that's Hiruden's whole shtick, is he wants to be the king of Elbath. So if Loki becomes the king because Harold told him to, which Loki doesn't want that, but Loki might claim the throne. But it might be a situation where he claims the throne and then Imu either submits him into wanting to, I don't know how it works. I mean, he mentions later in this chapter kind of how it works, but I don't know if there's any ways around it where he can just get Loki to join him, maybe by tricking him or something, or saying he's not going to destroy Elbath, or maybe he starts to destroy Elbath, like seriously, and then Loki ends up joining him. I think that might be how Elbath ends, is Loki joining him, saying, I am the king of Elbath, and then Imu gives him the power, and then he can control all the giants, and then the Straw Hats kind of need to escape from there and get away, and then I don't even know what happens from there, but I don't know. That's my theory, is that he needs a king in order to control the people as well, or something like that, or maybe a specific people for the ancient giants or something like that. The next part is Loki and Imu, they talk about Harold's death. And Imu, it's kind of funny, he mentions how he thinks it's harder on him, almost. It's kind of like Loki saying, that's so hard for me, he had so many more years left. And Imu's like, no, like, he was my weapon I was going to use. It's harder for me that I lost him. So I thought that was kind of funny because they're like comparing who had it worse in that situation. And then you just see them go out and fight, and then Emu like tanks these crazy attacks by Loki. Loki's going all out. And then this is where we kind of get a little information about Emu's powers. Loki asks him about the flames, and Emu tells him that it's his military might, and it dwells in all things, which makes me think Luffy has to have the opposite, right? Where he's going to use his power. Obviously, it's not Omen. It's going to be something else that dwells maybe in all things as well. Maybe there's like a yin and yang. Maybe that's what it is, because Luffy's white, Emu's black. Maybe it's a yin and yang where embedded in everything is good and evil, and so Luffy can easily use the good in things that Emu's using the Omen, which is the bad. I'm not sure, but then Emu turns his staff, which this is wild. I can't believe that this happened. But Emu turns his staff into a sword, and he calls it Nemesis. And I'm pretty sure it was a staff and then he turned it into a sword. Because I saw that's a sword, obviously, but I think before it was a staff. But he called it Nemesis, and it looks just like Mihawk's sword, which is going to be insane to see if Mihawk and him have any connection. Like, I already love the theory that Mihawk was a God's Knight at some point and defected or something. Maybe he was born from the God's Knights and then he didn't want that. I don't know. Because I don't know how he got away from that and is still able to roam free and like all that. I don't know. I mean, he's super strong, obviously. We know that. But yeah, I'm just not sure that whole situation. So that is something to keep your eye on. The crazy thing, though, is Emu doesn't just attack Loki. He stabs him through the chest. He pulls it out and blood is dripping. And Loki's still getting up and fighting, though. But while he's doing that, Emu says that he uses people's power to corrupt them, and he calls it dominion. And I love these lines right here. This dialogue is actually so good. But Loki says, God's dominion sounds more like a deal with the devil, which I think everyone saw that coming. Like when you kind of see if Emu's like, oh, like, you know, the villain in general is like, oh, I'm the god or whatever. It's like you're more like a villain. You know, it's kind of like a easy line to put, but Emu's reply just makes it so much better where he says, is there really a difference between God and devil? Like, that is so good. That's so chilling. It just shows you he doesn't care if he's a god. He doesn't care if he's a devil. He doesn't care how he's viewed. I mean, Loki kind of mentioned that earlier where he doesn't care. Or no, that was Harold, actually. It was a flashback with Harold saying he doesn't care his legacy and all that. But Emu does not care. He just wants to be in power, and that kind of tells you what kind of person he is, and obviously not the person Luffy likes. So yeah, he also says that the world rejoices itself, or the world itself rejoices in a state of dominion. Isn't that right, Joy Boy? And then you see Joy Boy, and it implies that they had some sort of relationship, some friendship. I don't know. Maybe it's a trope where they were best friends back in the day, which, I mean, it's happened before in manga and other stories, but so I'm really curious to see all that. I mean, we're not going to get that for a while, I guarantee it, unless Oda just wants to show us while Emu's here, but I can't see him doing God Valley and everything with Joy Boy. What else? Oh yeah, then we see Luffy and he's eating, and he's saying that the haki that's emitting from Emu is super suffocating, he can't breathe. And that if he wants to win, he needs to keep eating more. And it just shows a couple panels of that, which I thought was funny. Because it's just kind of random. It's just like Luffy's eating and then back to the fight. But Loki has this crazy attack where he shoots, he nails Emu, shoots him all the way to the tree. He gets like embedded in the tree. And then Loki does this giant, he turns into the dragon. He shoots this big, I want to say Boro breath, but whatever that attack is that Emu uses at Emu, and Emu smiles, and he is saying, and then it has like a parentheses type of thing, you know, where it's like in his head, and he's like thinking about it, and he's saying that it really is him, and that he's back, and he's returned, implying that he's fought someone with this ability before, and he's smiling, and which is crazy and menacing because it's a crazy attack, and Emu is just smiling that it's coming right at him, and he's ready to fight. So I'm so excited to see the following chapter, because maybe Luffy joins at that point. Maybe it just continues to be him and Loki, and then he just dominates Loki that next chapter. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next, but we're in it, and it's so good. But yeah, so those are the chapters. And next, we're going to do a tier list of the best and worst. Now, I'm going to do this in the future. Hopefully I'll have guests on, and we'll talk about stuff like that. We'll do guests, or we'll do tier lists and all that. But I'm going to randomly pick through, and we're going to create a tier list of different things. And I actually think for since this is the first episode, it's the first time me doing this, I'm just going to do it simple. I'm going to do a tier list of Straw Hats. And I mean, I'm one of those guys who I love all the Straw Hats. I mean, some of them I don't like as much as others, but I don't hate any Straw Hats. So I think, I don't know, I just think different tiers, it's all within reason that, you know, I like them and they're good. So I'll just rank the Straw Hats. So I'll put Luffy's gonna go in S tier, because he's the King Straw Hat, you know, he's the pirate captain, pirate king, whatever. He's at the top, so he's S tier. Zoro's S tier. I'm gonna do Nami next. I'm gonna put her in A. Zoro's one of my favorite characters. That's why he goes up there. And obviously, I mean, it's not about anything he's done specifically. Like, that's not what this tier list is about. It's just my preference. But I love Zoro. And being the vice captain and having Luffy's back and everything he does. So I like that. Luffy, A or B for me. Or did I say Luffy? I meant Nami. Nami, A or B. Just because I need to figure out if I want her A or B. I think I'm going to put her right now in A, just because she kind of bugs me. I'm one of those people who I just get annoyed of her. Like, she's a great navigator, whatever. She's not super powerful. She's just kind of there with the crew. I don't know. She's just one of my not favorites, because she's always yelling at the boys. She's always yelling at Zoro, Sanji, Luffy. She's always, belittling them. And I don't know. I just feel like I knew a lot of girls like that, and it just kind of irked me the wrong way. I feel like whenever Zoro clashes with her, I feel like I've had that clash many times, because she just thinks you're an idiot. Whatever. That's my own trauma, I guess. I'm going to put her in B, just because of that. Sanji or Usopp. Let's do Usopp. Usopp is going to be A. I'll have her over Nami. I love him, and then sometimes I can't stand him. When I first started getting into One Piece, I couldn't stand him. But now I love him because of obvious reasons. It's like the Buggy situation. You just want to cheer for the guy. So I'm going to put him in A. He could easily, though, be in B with Nami. But let's do Sanji. Let's do him in S. Let's just fill out those guys in S. Let's put Chopper. I'm going to put him in A. Yeah, I think I'm going to put Chopper in A. I'm going to put Robin in S. I love Robin. So we have Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Robin in S. We have Usopp and Chopper in A. And Nami in B. Shoot. Frankie's a tough one, because I love him. But, I mean, I think I'm putting him in A as of right now. Yeah, I think he's A. And then we're going to go Brook, B. I love Brook, but doesn't always do it for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is about him, but he's B with Nami, and Jinbei is B as well. And if Vivi was on the crew, if we're counting her, she would be S. She is probably my favorite girl in the whole story. Vivi is the queen of the pirates. She's the best. I love her. But that is it. That is the tier list. So yeah. this whole section, the tier list, it's either going to be a tier list, we're going to do some rankings, or we're going to do the best and worst of certain things. I think I'm going to roll, or like spin a wheel or something, and then it'll pick, of the tier list, like, or if it's going to pick like tier list or best and worst, or like what we're going to do, like what we're going to make a list out of. It's going to be on the spot, and it's going to give people not a lot of time to think if I have guests on in the future. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about is One Piece love. I wanted to make it positive. I want to make the podcast positive, and just like, we love One Piece. We're here for the love. And I just wanted to give a moment at the end of the podcast to talk about why we love One Piece, or just specific reasons. Like, it doesn't even have to be like the main reason why we love it, but just little things why we love it, and taking, a few minutes just to discuss the greatness of One Piece, and maybe a minute thing that maybe you love that nobody else looks at. But we're going to talk about those things, and maybe in the future I'll have you guys comment in the comment section and put your One Piece loves, and then I can discuss it, and then maybe actually I'll have you guys on one day to discuss it or whatever. So the topic I want to talk about, giving One Piece love today, I'm just going to be super general, and it's going to be about the beginning of One Piece and my journey with it, and why it's so special to me. I know it's super broad, super generic, but it'll just kind of give you my story, my origin on One Piece, and how I got into it. But I don't know, I think I had to have been 9 or 10, being a kid growing up, and actually younger. I watched One Piece on the 4Kids dub, and I enjoyed it then. I remember not being into it during that time when it was on the 4Kids dub too much. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't one of my favorites. I probably liked Shaolin Showdown better at the time. But I remember watching One Piece and thinking it was cool. But then I remember I got a little older, and then that's when they started doing, on Toonami, at night, and I think they did like the episode of Alabasta or I just remember something with Alabasta, and just watching it and making it, and sorry, I'm stuttering a lot, but I just remember it making me feel like I've never felt that way watching something in my life, where like these kids are standing. I think it was like the backstory of Vivi when she was little, and like those guys were like standing up for her, and they wanted to die for her as kids, and I just thought that was like so crazy. I'm like, and it kind of like, because I never watched anything like that. I didn't really watch anime, unless it was like One Piece like that. Or I guess Pokemon, and just the way they stuck up for Vivi when she was a kid and all that, like, I don't know, it just blew my mind, and kind of, it definitely started to form of what kind of person I was and who I was going to grow up to be, and just always there for your friends and stuff. But that was like a little bit of exposure to One Piece, and just how awesome the writing is, and how just minute small characters like Koza can be standing up for Vivi, and you just feel something so deep. Like, I've never watched anything like that in my life, where just the writing's so deep and rich and meaningful. And then no One Piece after that, pretty much. I didn't really pay attention or know about it or watch it or anything until I was right out of high school, which I graduated in 2012. And I remember talking to my brother, and he was getting into anime. I think he was still in high school, and he was telling me about, oh, you remember One Piece, and talking about all that, and I was like, yeah, I remember. And so then I just went back and started watching One Piece, and from that time, from when he told me about it and I got onto One Piece, I watched that series, and I was only watching dub at the time, and I think it only went to like Marineford, and I watched it over and over and over and over and over again. Just because I ended up falling in love with the story and everything. Everyone knows why we love One Piece, and that's why we're here. I don't need to explain that, but yeah, that's my journey. I will be back next week. I'm going to try to make clips that will come in the future. Just bear with me during these audio times. The audio is not going to be great. I know a lot of things aren't going to be great in the beginning, And even my speaking, I'm going to get better at speaking and just, learning to talk and mindlessly talk about One Piece in this kind of format. And yeah, everything's just going to get better from here. And I hope you guys all enjoy. Please have a great and blessed week. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.